I'm Sir Flowbojan Thunderhammer.
And I'm Teflon Frosthammer.
And I'm Cabbage Tidehammer.
And this
is
WAK.
If Amtgard knighthood means anything, you can't knife a motherfucker and keep it.
And the thing that people need to understand essentially about arts and sciences events is that your scores don't matter.
Do you want a black phoenix or a white phoenix?
Jeez, language, man. We're on
right.
a freaking podcast, for fuck's sake.
Mind-blowing experience, right?
Hello, everyone, and welcome to WAK, where we discuss topics important to the Amtgard community at large and talk with interesting people from around the foam fighting world.
Except today when we just have Jay.
Yeah, that we really couldn't find anybody else. So, Subway, thank you for joining us again. Subway is...
By joining us, he means he just tagged along because he was my ride today.
Yeah. Him and Lauren were rideless, so I Ubered.
Awesome.
Wait, how did you end up rideless? Your wife was at Amtgard today with you.
Yeah, I wish she was very mad at me today. No, I'm kidding.
Yes, she was.
The doghouse. She's very mad at Lauren, from what I heard.
She did kind of give her a character screen select scar across her lips today. That was pretty funny.
Mike Tyson on her.
Yeah, right.
She was hanging.
Dude, I saw Mike Tyson recently with his trainer. He's still fucking a monster.
Oh,
Is he really?
I saw this on TikTok. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's fucking devastating.
Yeah, so anyway, about Amtgard. We're going to talk about tournaments and tournament structures and maybe some branch off conversations about that. So we had an event, I don't know, it's probably 4 or 5 weeks ago now, where we had a Midnight Ironman, and we had like 60 people in line or something like that. And I had offhandedly made a comment about, I don't know, like maybe we need a pit per 12 people just as napkin math, right? And so Subway was like, you know what, I think that actually might be a good idea. And the more I thought about it, trying to figure out what is the purpose of the Ironman portion of a Warlord Sports thing, right? So taking a deep dive down that logic, the purpose of the Ironman is to seed your top 8, right? So what is a better way to seed your top 8? And I don't think that there's a better way than Ironman necessarily, but I think that portion can be run in a different way. So my first knee-jerk reaction was to put 4 pits down. Now, there's some interesting things that come about for this, right? You seed your top 8 more correctly for that day. And what I mean is you have more people participating who can streak.
And more opportunities.
And more opportunities and a faster fight line, so you should have more action. So overall, everyone should be participating more often.
Is there not some argument to be made that maybe you get all of your high-quality fighters in one pit, and so that pit becomes more competitive, and then another pit?
So that's the thing, is there's multiple ways you can approach the pits too, right?
Okay.
So you can have still a single line and feed them into the 4 pits, or you can have 4 different pits, but if you do 4 different pits and 4 different lines, then you need to cascade those lines in some form or fashion. So something like you have pits 1 through 4. When you lose in pit 1, you go to line number 2 and you fall down the waterfall, and then
you go to the gulag, and then you...
Yeah, exactly, yeah. So again, like, this is kind of the thing I started thinking about. So if we want to make our tournaments more competitive and like more, I guess, true to skill level in the tournament, I think that's something that we should kind of explore, right?
Okay, so there's a whole lot. I'm glad that we got kind of a full layout of what's going on there. There's a lot to unpack there. So let's start with the very beginning. Subway, what is the purpose of the Ironman portion in the Warlord Sports style tournaments that we run, as you see it?
To my understanding, it is designed to not necessarily weed out, but to showcase everyone's prowess in a sense of you'll be able to find your top fighters to the point where at the end of it, we will cut to top 8, using a magic term, of you'll have those 8 is considered the cream of the crop of that Ironman, so that instead of doing brackets where you and I could be up, or as you said, you and Justin got stuck first round in a bracketed tournament 3 or 4 times. So literally In Justin's case, he was knocked out before he could ever begin, over and over and over, which is not a fair representation of his skill or really an experience.
So you know how in the Dragon Ball Z Cell Saga, where they have that fighting tournament, and there's like thousands of the world's greatest fighters, but they only show the fights involving Goku or involving Trunks or involving Piccolo or involving Cell, and then a couple of fights involving Hercule. Like what we're really doing with this is we're identifying our main characters for the next arc.
Yeah, pretty much.
So,
like
BBC
joking aside, yeah, pretty much.
I was being facetious, but I was serious.
Right, yeah.
So having, and I want to point out too to anyone listening that I believe that the original style for Warlord Sports calls for multiple rings, but it's one ring for every 20 people that you have, I believe.
Let's move to the next logical step. What's wrong with the current one ring system, or what is wrong with a one ring system?
So for me, the one ring system sets up usually 1 to 3 people who have much bigger streaks than the rest of the pack. And you kind of squeak in the 5, 6, 7, 8, or 6, 7, 8 people, and they're just kind of random people who got points. And with the one ring, you have like this juicy underbelly type situation where like you skipped some of the highly skilled fighters and you got a bunch of people who are maybe their 1, 2, 3s.
Yeah, like you've got
Order of the Warriors, right?
So you have a scenario where like Zeb and Gun just fought, and like somebody just knocked Gun out with a lucky shot, and then I'm next, and I'm facing Jimmy Newbie who got a lucky shot, and then behind me are 10 more newbies whose it's their first day.
Right.
And so yeah, I have an underbelly sort of. Okay, I see. I can see that as a problem.
The idea behind what we talked about with trying to get your main characters appropriately in this scenario, Zeb and Gun are going at it, but then they Simo. So there goes those 2 main characters. You step in, and then it's just chafe as far as the eye can see. Well, for other people, so I finally get to you, I kill you, haha, it's my time. I turn to Jeff, and then we Simo, and then that's kind of it.
So to continue my metaphor, just like in the Cell Saga, because they only had one ring, it allowed for a Hercule to enter into the final 8.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
So
I'm gonna keep doing this as long as
No, it's great. I actually really like it.
By the way, everyone listening to this on YouTube, anytime that you hear the one ring, please leave a comment with a timestamp and a your favorite Lord of the Rings quote.
Yeah, I was thinking.
So there is a problem with a one ring system. So that I can get context on this, are we talking about a one ring system, period? So even if there's only 16 people? Or is there a cutoff where having one ring is appropriate and then a line where having 2 is where you need to go?
And that's what we were discussing, is it's not necessarily wrong to do it that way because it all depends on the number of participants. As you said, if there's 16, might not be so bad. For our Friday Night Ironman, 60 plus maybe
was ridiculous.
It was miserable because once you got in, I think we timed it. It was, I think, just over 10 minutes to get through the line to have an opportunity to fight. You would fight one time, and the idea is lose, Simo, get shrugged out, it's going to be another 10 plus minutes for you to get an opportunity again, and there's literally nothing you can do other than just walk.
Well, and there were only the time limit for that tournament was like, it was weird. It was like 47 minutes or something. They had a calculation they used to figure.
Yeah, I think they used the Warlord Sports of it was 20, and then every participant added a minute or something.
Yeah, so when you have a line of 60 people and it takes 10 minutes to get through the line, everybody gets 4 chances to do anything.
Mm-hmm. And that's essentially what happened.
Yeah, and again, in the original Warlord Sports style tournaments, there were
turn the light on when you
multiple rings. Oh yeah, I need to do that.
Yeah,
there were multiple rings running, and it's again, someone in the comments, please correct me here if I'm wrong, but I think it was every 20 people you added another ring. Mm-hmm. So if you had 20, you had 1. Once you broke to 21, I think that you went to 2, and 21 to 40 was 2. And then it moved up from there.
Right. And that's what Jeff and I were talking about, is there's not necessarily, this was not run specifically as a Warlord Sports style. It was modeled after it to some degree in certain facets. But that's what we wanted to talk about, is the different ways to run tournaments, and also when you do it, why you're doing it. So that way you don't fall into the same pitfall of, well, we had an Ironman, we had a pit, and we had people with the appropriate time. What could go wrong?
Okay.
Here's what went wrong. here are things you can do to change and shift to make sure that doesn't happen.
And this isn't really meant to be a here is your perfect answer. This today is like a true discussion on, what are we doing and why are we doing it kind of idea. And if we have faulty logic in our process to try and weed that out, right?
This is how we've done it, so that's why we do it, is hazardous because
tradition for tradition's sake is pretty bad.
Yeah.
Overall, right?
Fair.
Agreed. So I am a Reeve who is either setting up a tournament or helping someone set up a tournament. I have a number of fighters there. What is the first thing that I should do to determine, like we're still getting set up?
Well, hold on. Ain't this the tricky part, though? Because until people show up and start signing up, how do you know how many people to plan for?
Sure. Let's say in this metaphor that they're all standing in the field in front of me.
Okay. Sure.
And I'm getting the field set up, and these are soft boundary fields. Where do I say, okay, I need a second ring? And
So you've got 2 Reeves and a vacuum.
yeah, how many Reeves do I need to I'm new to running tournaments.
So we were discussing earlier today about using
me
a
through it.
40-player model to base some of our ideas to bounce off of.
yeah, in our hypothetical situation,
Yeah.
this is what we'll work with.
Sure.
So, like you said, really first step, and this is where I hammer home, Reeves are the most important part about your tournament.
Can I have too many?
No.
Okay.
Well, in theory, if you have 50 for like a 4-person tournament, it's excessive, but you're not going to have issues.
But you're getting every angle on that.
Yeah.
I didn't see it. I was behind the board. Bullshit.
Yeah.
So I'm planning. For sake of this conversation, we're going to say that I am the Reeve that's going to be inexperienced and going to be setting all of this up, right? And so I'm coming to you guys and asking questions. Okay. I've never done this before. I have seen that I'm doing it at a barony. And I'm hoping that some of the other parks that are around there will come out. What do I need to do first? What are my first steps? So this has been planned. I'm online talking to my friends and stuff. What are my first steps to take to move this along?
So you have done this at a barony level, but not at a kingdom level? Is that
No,
correct?
our tournament, my tournament's going to be held at a barony level.
Okay, this is the first time you're running it at a barony level.
Yep.
Okay.
And so what do I need to do first?
So first, what you need to do is establish what kind of tournament you're running, how many participants are going to be in, do you think?
I believe that there's going to be enough that after talking to all of you, I can't run a simple best 2 out of 3, and so I'm going to have to run something like a Warlord Sports style tournament.
Okay. Is it going to be your full weapon master of all the brackets, or is it just going to be an open?
So, good question. Me and the 2 other people that have currently agreed to Reeve with me have decided that we're going to run all 5 categories that would normally be run in a weapon master.
Okay. So do you feel that you will need more than 1 ring? Like how many participants?
I don't know. I would like to be able to have more than 1 ring, even if it's just for the top 8s.
So here's the thing is that you should plan on the ability to have, at a barony level, probably 2 pits.
Surprise, visitors, more people than you thought showed up.
Right. And again, that may vary because if you end up with 16, that's a perfect bracketing system. So you probably
Right.
should just bracket because it'll be faster that way, probably.
Mhm.
Right.
But this is where you get into problems also, right? Like if you're less than 16, then now you have buy-in brackets and stuff, and you honestly need to, if it's not laid out in your Kapora, go see like an MBA style listing for how bracketing and things like that work to make sure that you understand how either a double elimination, if you're going to run it that way, which I suggest doing, it'll be a little longer, but it will give you a better read competitively than a single elimination.
So just to back up for one moment.
Yeah.
First, I determined where I was going to have my tournament. In this case, it was a barony. Second, I said, okay, now that I know that I'm going to be at a barony, let's go ahead and get some Reeves. And I talked to 2 of my friends, and 2 of my friends said, I'll help you Reeve. So right now I have 3 Reeves, hopefully to get more, but that's what I'm at right now. And I'm hoping for more people to show up to this barony level tournament because there's other parks around. So I need to decide on a tournament format. What I'm going to do is, if I've understood you correctly, is I'm going to bring a normal 16-person bracket, just in case we don't get many people.
And I would post ahead of time that if we only get 16 people, we will be running a double elimination bracket. But if we get greater than 16, we'll be doing like a Warlord style Iron Man seating or something.
So communication, let people know if we get this much, we'll do this. If it's more than that, we'll do that. I'm communicating with my other Reeves and everyone who is potentially looking at
This is
something.
even before getting to field. This is a post however many days, weeks, or whatever it is in advance on Facebook or Discord or whatever your park and kingdom use to communicate these events for. So this is even before you've set foot on field that day.
I have talked to my two friends and they said that they'll Reeve, and we're writing all of this stuff down for our initial post to say we're going to have this.
Yes.
Okay, so post has gone up, has the rules for the tournament. My rules are, in this case, 16 and under, single bracket, over that Warlord sports style.
Sure.
I want to have 2 rings. I know that. Need to probably get another Reeve. What is the minimum number of Reeves that you would be comfortable with per ring?
I personally like 2 Reeves per ring, and they're mobile. I do not like when Reeves just stand. I think that they miss the angles that they should be watching.
Is there ever real quick? Is there ever a merit to having your Reeves just stand? Like,
I don't personally think so, because I'm looking for specific things. Whenever I'm Reeving, I'm looking for troubled shot location calls, which, like, over the board can be a troublesome call. And then I'm looking for timing things. So what I need to do is track the hands.
Yeah.
And I do a lot of actually auditory Reeving, I guess, because I'm listening for slaps versus blunted contact. You have to realize, like, are they wearing gloves, or are they barehanded or something like that too for the audible stuff, because they're different. But this is a lot of, like, nuance that isn't going to be very useful, I feel, in some ways.
Yeah. The reason I was getting to it at all was because I know, in several tournaments they'll announce, like, oh, we're doing active Reeving, and which always implies that there is a passive Reeving where a Reeve just stands there, and I don't know what. Like, I have in my head before tried to think of any possible benefit to having a Reeve that is just completely passive,
So
does not move.
in our area, and I think Neverwinter as well, active Reeving versus passive Reeving is this. So passive Reeving is the Reeves are there taking notes, basically, and if a player asks for the Reeves to intervene, then you intervene with your knowledge that you've taken from that fight.
Okay.
Active Reeving would be making the calls before being asked.
Okay.
But you should still be doing the same thing in either perspective, in my opinion. Jay, is you any differing on that, or?
No. So disclaimer, it's not like I'm the end all be all, and I know
none of us are.
Yeah, Jordan.
And why are
absolutely
we
not.
here?
Yeah, absolutely not. There is no. I have not thought of a reason to ever stationary Reeve. The arguments that I've heard for it is if you get enough people and you just kind of stand around the ring, that's good enough. But as Jeff said, you're going to miss certain angles. The closest argument I've come to is if your Reeves are mobile to the wrong degree, they can actively miss angles and shots because they're too mobile. But I think that is a fixable answer, not a negative to...
Yeah, you can get better at Reeving.
Yes.
The other option is to convince however many amped guarders you need to pay attention to one thing at the same time, which is never going to happen.
Right.
So to expand on flows, the number of people you need, right?
Yeah.
I prefer 2 Reeves per ring, and they're mobile. You need, if it's a Warlord sports style, you need a counter per ring, so they're taking the streaks down for the wins and breaks on the streaks and stuff like that.
Okay.
And then you need a timer, and that timer guy usually is kind of the line Reeve who directs them. So you're paying attention to who, which ring kind of dies first to funnel the line into.
Okay, so in this scenario where I have 2 rings, ideally I want 4 Reeves, 2 people to count streaks in those rings, 1 person that is working the line with a stopwatch saying, you go there, and really this is to keep it funneling, but also to prevent people from, if Zeb kills me in this ring over here, the person in line isn't going, no, I'm just going to wait for this ring because I don't want to fight Zeb.
Yeah,
Correct.
that is that too. It keeps things moving. Granted, again, at this idea of it being a barony level, the volunteers may not be enough to cover every position. This is definitely the most favorable possible position filled that you can get. But you can probably make do with one reeve per ring and one counter per ring, and then maybe you don't have the line reeve and you have the players kind of go, but you run into some possible
And
dodge
this
issues.
is where, depending on your resources, you may have to structure your tournament according to those resources, even if the players are wanting something different, or you yourself would like to run a different style of tournament. You may have to go with what you actually have and not overextend yourself or cut yourself off ahead of time.
Yeah, so the big takeaways here, just to again recap everything here, is plan well, post everything in your first post, all the rules, the formats, when the tournament may change, if there's going to be a change. It could be that this is a kingdom level tournament. There's not going to be any kind of change, right? Who knows? But post that up in your first thing. Be ready to answer any questions. Try and get one counter, one person per ring. One timer, one person per ring to count streaks, and 2 reeves per ring. This is ideal. You can work with less, and you may have to work with less, but this would be the ideal scenario. So what are some other tournament formats that I could look at? We've talked about the Warlord sports style because here in Winter's Edge, that's what's often used. And it may have other names in other places too. We call it the Warlord sports style tournament.
Yeah, I know Warlord is kind of on the outs because of the...
Well, also, like, making sure you understand, like, what is being done and why it's being done with this mechanic of the Warlord sports style, right? This mechanic is there to find your top 8. And so if you have one line with 60 people... Great, and again, I'm not ragging on the one line with 60 people from our thing because it was literally just an Iron Man tournament, no cut in this specific instance. But this is something that I think can easily be fallen into by mistake if you've got new people running tournaments and don't know. So this is kind of a resource episode on trying to suss out how you want to run tournaments. And they're not in any kind of definable standard right now. So you can pull some ideas from different things depending upon your corpora, I suppose. But, there's more than one way to skin a cat kind of deal, right?
Sure. So let's say that I don't want to hold a Warlord sports style tournament.
Mm-hmm.
So we mentioned doing a standard bracket. This would just be like you would see in any college basketball game. There's 8 slots. Each slot has 2 teams, 16 total, and you funnel down until you get 1. You could do a 16 slot bracket of that as well, so up to 32, and funnel down. And you mentioned a winners and a losers bracket. Talk to me a little bit about that base structure and when it might be appropriate to use something like that over a Warlord sports style tournament.
Right. So I guess for the sake of this argument, I'll play the expert to make Lucas happy. That
Well, real quick, as the obvious audience plan, because I'm not big on running tournaments or anything else. Heretofore, all we have discussed is a Warlord sports style tournament, right?
Right.
So from what I've gathered, a Warlord sports style tournament is specifically for when you have a shitload of people that you need to get through.
Yeah.
So time invested into the tournament, be that for a barony level tournament or a kingdom level tournament and things like that, is something that's a really big deal, at least in Winter's Edge, because not everybody wants to have the tournament and be all friggin' day, right?
it depends on what you're looking for.
Okay.
And that's really the first question with your tournament, where the obvious, well, is to fight and to win and whatever, but you have to know your audience.
You have more than tournament fighters at that specific event,
So
then
like
you've got
you
to
were saying,
deal with that as well.
Yeah,
Right.
it's-
I'm just asking because we have currently litigated this one style for about 20 minutes, and I'm trying to boil it down to what is this good for, and when would you use this Warlord style tournament?
Gotcha. So ideally, the Warlord Sports tournament style kind of gets you through a large number of people in a shorter amount of time.
Okay.
What is a large number of people? Are we talking 15, 20, 25?
What is a large pizza?
It's about $11 over at Alidio's.
Because to me, 12 inches is not a large pizza.
So with that, I would say 40. We'll play around with that number. Like
Well,
you said, we can run a 32.
Depending on your resources, right? So if you have
Correct. And that's where you have all of these other aspects. It's a resource management style game that if you run a Warlord Sports tournament and you have you as a Reeve and a counter, and that's all you have, everyone's having a bad time.
Yeah.
So you need to know. So if you are limited on resources and have that many players, that's what Jeff and I were talking about, the different aspects of why you're running it on. And that was the issue with this past event, is that people were asking, why isn't this a big tournament? Well, because that was not an event for our tournaments. It
Yeah,
was a
by the
tournament
idea-
just to have to make us happy, like, yay, we're out of the house, we get to play.
Yeah.
It was only simple Ironmans.
It was kindergarten for stick jogs.
Yeah. And people were upset it wasn't the big deal.
Like the Weapon Master.
Yeah, but that wasn't our event to have the Weapon Master.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So what you're looking at there, why you're doing it. So a bracketed tournament tends to be, if you're on a small scale, it just makes the most sense. It gets through, lets everybody fight and go through. If you're on a large scale with brackets, it can take longer to run. It allows more people to fight in that bracketed format if you prefer brackets instead of just the Iron Man, where I fight Lucas, we Simo, oh, what fun. But in a bracket, even if I win, he still has another chance, possibly another chance. There's fighting to be had. So if that's what your culture wants, that's one of your options. If you're on a larger scale, other kingdoms have seeded their bracketed tournaments based on orders of the warrior. The idea behind that, in the past, where we have not done that in Neverwinter, in Winter's Edge, it's a crapshoot. You will literally have, like, I can verify that we have traveled all the way down to Florida, and we ourselves knocked each other out of the brackets to not get any points so that Florida won. Had we not done that, some of our people, namely Zeb, who was like 1 point shy, would have won had we not kicked him out of an earlier bracket as a throwaway.
That's fair. Crabs in a bucket, kind of.
Yeah, where seeding it, in theory, allows your upper echelon. So I'm at my 8, you're at your 2, we get paired up, I take your lunch money,
Yeah.
and the finals will be really cool against Flo.
Yeah.
But that also has pitfalls in the sense that if you are cross gaming, you may upset the balance, which makes for a really cool underdog story. Or people that just, like Jeff is just amazing, but has a lower number, so he would definitely wreck some of the higher ends. It's not a perfect system.
Right.
But it really depends on what the culture that you're looking for to cater to.
So again, this is kind of identifying the mechanics of your tournament and why you are doing it.
Yeah, the
right?
different flavors, because
So,
you can pick and choose. There's
again,
no right tournament.
Typically, the why is to produce the most competitive tournament at the top end as possible. Typically, the top 8.
Okay,
right?
so this is a good nugget to have. So your goal is always to produce the most competitive tournament.
So because of the way we've moved to a very tournament-centric Orders of the Warrior,
Sure.
I feel like the idea to produce the most, the best, what is
Quality.
it? The vague the quality of the tournament or quality of the fighters in the tournament.
Yeah.
Then you're wanting to have the best fighters in those top 8 positions.
To be able to showcase.
To
Because
showcase.
even now, with just the basic Iron Man, you are having the issue of a single ring. You will have a few people that are really good that make breakaways.
Right.
And then they'll Simo, and then you'll just have random Joe pop in, kill some newbies, get high up. Your other good fighters end up fighting, Simoing, their numbers don't go up, and then when they cut to top 8, it's still a hodgepodge. Like, it is
Yeah.
not true. If you are attempting to literally get the best 8 people from that tournament on that day, you could still get random Joe.
So
in the top 8.
to jump on top of this one, because this is part of the problem of a single pit, is that you create these pockets of skill. and you can create a dense pocket of heavy skill, and you can get kind of messed up in a single line in this dense pocket. Or you get this other pocket where it's a bunch of low skill, and you have a higher chance to go through it than you do on the dense pocket.
Chaos is a ladder, right?
Yeah, and I want to really quickly talk about what Jeff means when he says a pocket of skill. Picture a line of 25 people, and the four of us are, in this hypothetical, we are the best people that are in this tournament, right?
Best people in the room.
Yeah. So it's funny because you almost tipped that dry erase board down on your head, and I would have kept rolling that camera.
Yeah, that's fine.
But let's say in this hypothetical that the four of us are expected to be first through fourth in most of the brackets, right?
Sure.
Well, me and Jeff go up against one another, and I beat Jeff. And then what has happened is Jay, in an earlier fight, had fought his way up to where him and Jeff simoed. So now they're beside each other. The next person in is going to be Jay, not related to anything I did, just because they simoed earlier.
Yeah.
Jay beats me. Jay goes through 5 or so people and then gets to Lucas. Whoever wins that is going to have the entire line to run, again in this hypothetical, where it's very clear that we're going to be first through fourth, until it gets back to Jeff, who was the first person that died in this line.
Yep.
Yeah.
Unbeknownst to everyone, that is the most important fight of the tournament bracket there, or the tournament run, is you versus me, even though it's not a judge of our skill. It's literally who gets the best opportunity.
Right.
Right. And so this is a situation where, for anyone who's been in tournament fighting for a really long time, there are times where I specifically remember a tournament that we were having at Radiant Valley that Jeff was reeving, where you and I were going up against one another, and I happened to win the fight, and you said, hey, congratulations on the 17 streak, because the next this isn't a shot against the next 17 people that were in line. None of them had played Amp for more than 2.5 months or so.
Yeah.
Yep.
So when we say pockets of skill, when Jeff was referring to how pockets can form in the line, it's because some of your better fighters can simo and start creating this big pileup that then leaves a lot of less experienced fighters in a big long streak.
Let me play the other side of the coin here for a second, because so far we've been having this discussion in a manner where it's like, well, sometimes it allows a newbie to enter the top 8, and that might not be totally fair. And that's true. But it also means that you can't stack the deck for your guy. Because let's say Jay and I are in the same fighting company or whatever, and Jay is already ahead of me in Warriors. He can't win anything off this tournament, so he goes, hey, Cabbage. And I take him. Then I've got the next 16 people in line, right? That's a free 16 streak for me, which isn't fair to those new players either, and it means I'm getting an award that I'm not necessarily owed, because there's no quality control there, right? I'm not fighting because Jay is already taking care of you, who I can't beat, and Teflon, who I can't beat. And then Jay sees the line behind me and says he can beat all 16 of them.
Yeah, and I want to point out something too. When we're talking about these pockets and stuff like that, if you're someone that's newer that's made it into a top 8, this isn't a shot against you. Good on you.
But we are saying you just got lucky and you suck.
So I'll put on the elitist cap. Just we have a villain. Because this is a really boring podcast, and I apologize to anyone listening.
Well, take the floor, run with it, man.
Well, no, I'll play the villain for that, absolutely, because I have done that, and we do have people that do that throwing fights to literally, like, all right, Flo's doing really well. Well, I can oppose Flo.
Yeah.
But if I let him win, he does even better, and then depending on how it's set up, I drop to the lower bracket or the loser's bracket. I'll clean up the loser's bracket, so then when we get to the finals and it's Flo and me again, oh, Flo got me. What a good friend he is. Good job, buddy.
Yeah.
So you're right. We can say tactics, or it's really just a horrible way of doing things.
There's a quality control involved, and it keeps people from stacking the deck, and it ensures that the people who go to that top 8 are more likely to be the most quality fighters that day.
And really, that's what we're trying to figure out and talk about is what's a good way to do that, and there's not a perfect way to do it.
Right. So my thing is the 4 lines kind of idea. And again, I'm using just a 40-person thing for it as an example because it kind of cleans things up a little bit. So with having the 4 lines, when you're talking about streaks, you're going to have to take into account were these quality streaks if you're looking at higher into Order of the Warriors, though.
Right.
Because it's possible that the top 4 people just stay in those lines.
Yeah.
So they don't see each other, or they won't see each other as much. So this is not a perfect system either. But I think it gets the most fighting involved, and likely the top 4 fighters, probably top 8, because not everyone's going to stay there the whole time. Even a warlord's going to get tired or make a mistake or something
And the
like
people
that.
that knock them out are probably going to be the next people to take over that.
And-
Correct.
But your data gets more accurate the more frequently you sample. And
Yes.
this allows you to sample more frequently.
Bingo. That's the idea. 100% the idea. And then on top of that, I don't remember if we got to it, but cascading the pits, so you don't have someone, because you can run those 4 pits in 2 different ways that I can think of off the top of my head, and you can cascade them. So like in the 40-person example, when you start the tournament, you'll have 2 people in each of the 4 rings, and then 8 people behind to ready to fall in. And then when a lose happens, that person who loses goes to another line. So this feeds a rotating sample, so it's really hard to go, shucks, Zeb won that line, which is a warlord, and then, oh, look, 5th Order of the Warrior person won over here. I'm going to kind of just sneak on over this
So
guy.
again, I'll be the villain. Yeah, absolutely. I look over. There's Flo. Flo can beat me. Lucas, I got that. Like,
Yeah.
all right, you're going in the Flo. I've got to tie my shoe. Hold on. Can you here? Hop
Yeah.
on in. Go
Yeah.
on in. Like, oh,
I've seen
perfect.
that in tournaments too.
Jake,
I have
wearing
seen people do
Velcro
that.
shoes.
So-
What do you mean?
I don't disagree with you because that happens, but we should not be rewarding that kind of behavior.
Absolutely.
Like, we should just be like, all right, buddy, you just kicked yourself to the back of the line. Go,
All right, so sorry to take the widest view of this. So
Yeah.
one of the things that I would like to see, because I love tournaments.
Every Reeve is allowed to punch one guy.
Yes.
Okay.
No.
Problem solved. Camp guards.
I didn't hear
Thanks
that.
for tuning in, everybody.
No headphones.
No.
Flo. What he's saying yes? Okay. So what I would like to see, and again, I apologize, I use Magic the Gathering terminology. So a lot of times with their tournaments,
Audience will hate that.
nerds, that you'll have tournaments every week. They're organized, it's funded, it's just what happens. But one of the things, you'll have the player and the deck that they use. So the archetype. So we'll pretend it's equipment or whatever. As they go through the round robin, they'll cut to top 8. The players generally understand that they're not the best of the best for winning a tournament, because they know they've got another tournament to go to, and to another tournament. They play because they enjoy the tournament.
Right.
You could go undefeated in the entire Swiss, so you've never took a loss, seeded top 8. You'll be number 1 against number 8. If you have a bad matchup, number 8 can knock you out completely.
Yeah.
Number 8 can then lose in the very next round, but you made the bottom.
Yeah.
But all day you were number 1. But they tend to understand that's no big deal. I'm just going to do it again next week.
Yeah.
Our problem, we don't get to just have tournament every week back to back. But the idea is the people that are cheating or edging out their tactics to get places is because they understand that this is my opportunity. How many times did we drive to Florida? 10 hours to roll out, to fight, to what a great event, and 10 hours back.
Yeah.
We valued our time in tournament very high. So here, ideally, what we would do is create a system that runs well, doesn't waste people's time, doesn't waste travelers' time, and if what we're trying to do is showcase more of a true top 8 fighting caliber,
Yeah.
because there's nothing wrong with, like, Mr. Joe Newby making into the top 8 through luck. Luck's a tactic.
Yeah, but
You got to get in there. You got to do it.
to bring it back to the Magic example, if I got into the top 8 with my starter deck I bought at the CM games on my way in,
Mm-hmm.
that's not necessarily a good show of like what I'm capable of or what the game can
Might be a better show in this example, but
Oh,
Yeah.
fuck, I don't play Magic.
yeah, right.
Exactly. Well, that's the thing. It's in the glass cannon. Like, literally, I have a combo deck that's just trying to win. That if I play Legacy, so it's like all the older cards essentially. So if you can imagine a combo like Solitaire, I don't care what you're doing. I'm just putting my cards together to win. I brick against blue counter Magic. So they just say, I do a thing, they say no, and it's over. If I don't play against those blue decks and you're trying to play some creatures, I'm like, look at this thing I do. I win. I win. I win.
Okay.
It's like, yeah, it's not the skill. It's literally the luck of the deck and what it's designed to do is the glass cannon. But then I hit the top 8 And the first, like, nope, counter, done.
Okay.
But they know generally that it's not like this is my run. This is like I'm going to get knighted for this tournament. It's going to be, we're having fun. This is what I'm bringing to the table. This would be similar to an open bracket of I'm running down spear and it's boards as far as the eye can
Lefty
see.
boards.
Yeah, I'm like, haha, haha, the whole way. Yeah. Turns out I brought the best equipment for that day. That doesn't magically make me the best fighter ever.
I went the other direction with the example. So lefty boards was not the right answer on that one.
Well, no, it's stuff like that, but
I don't know. I'd argue if you bring the best equipment every time, right? Like that's part of your strategy. But
yeah, but that's where again, sorry, nerds. It's with Magic you play in Legacy specifically blue because that has the highest. You have more options. You can say no to the other players. In Amp Guard, we'll just generically say that's sword board.
Yep.
That you can absorb more random goobery shots.
No, are we saying that Sword and Board is the blue deck of Amped Guard?
Here's my villain hat. Yes, if you're playing board, the black hole that sucks up talent, you are the blue player in Magic. Reevaluate yourself.
Man, my knowledge of Magic the Gathering is such that I'm barely hanging on to this conversation. Dear life. The last time I picked up a deck of cards, I was playing Euchre.
Okay, well, I'm trying. It's your DBZ references. I'm like, I can kind of put them together, but no.
Like I said, I'm hanging on.
Yeah. But the idea is, like we were saying, it's trying to get a more accurate view because really we're all prideful asses that like, I'm the best and I beat you, haha. And like, well, no, you're not. Well, who won the last tournament? I did. But really a better attitude is that was a good run you had. That's really good. I'm hoping to do better myself this next time.
Yeah.
And that alone, having tournaments that are played more accurately, I guess, to better filter out and get a better read on who actually is capable of shit.
Yeah.
That's what ideally we would try to make. So then when you actually put on your big boy pants and like, I'm the best, you can actually showcase, well, yeah, I actually want to get this one, this one, this one in this style. And I think that's what like Warlord was originally designed to do.
Sir Gunn, I think, put it best a number of years ago. Tournaments don't decide who is the best overall. They decide who is the best on that day in those styles.
Yes.
And that's an important thing to...
A distinction.
Yeah, it's an important thing to remember.
So now that we kind of had the discussion over getting to the top 8, there's actually some different formats that has some nuances once you're in the top 8. And it's not something that I realized until our when we went to Buck Res and we did our fights for the top there.
Yeah.
Because Ruben ran it as first to 3, not best of 3.
He did, didn't he?
Which means that you could have a total of 5 fights instead of only ever having 3.
Yep. Not including Simos, but yeah.
Yeah.
And I apologize because I do not remember. So with the Come Try LARP tournament that happened, the winner of the open bracket, I believe, listening to Stab Chats, Anatol's podcast that had him on there, he talked about it.
Everybody should go listen to Stab Chats. It's great.
Yep, good stuff. That he talked about prepping and planning for that. And when he found the first to 3, he loved it because he felt that it gave way more opportunity to flex, to style, to really showcase what you have. Because in the best 2 out of 3, you can jump and get somebody, like just green missile and stab, haha. Now that you're in their head, you can just throw like a double leg and like, well, that was garbage. Good fight. I have no idea what you actually can do. I haven't rated you as a fighter at all, but I know these crazy combo moves were done.
Yeah, and what's always referring to is that in best 2 out of 3s, if you win the first match, you have somewhat of an advantage, even if it's just a psychological advantage.
Man, I would love to see the statistics of winning a bout or whatever you want to call it by winning the first match. How many comebacks we get? Like, that would be a really cool.
Because they actually talked about that. Yep, to some degree. They talked about where the winner, and I apologize for not remembering his name, that's what he talked about, was like, yeah, when you get that first, it's huge.
Yeah.
Because even if you fall asleep in the second round, the other guy is still sweating bullets because he could lose at any moment.
Yeah.
Where first to 3, how they ran it, he loved it because not only could you feel out your opponent. He talked about where that's what he would do is he would throw moves throughout the tournament to get people into the mindset this is how he fights. And then first to 3, he would change it up. And it completely threw them off, and he had enough time to figure out how they fought, adjust to it, and then move forward. So it was a better showcase of actual fighter skill than just, I stabbed you, I double-A'd you. What a good fight that was.
Yeah, okay.
Why do you keep talking about my fights?
It's my signature dish.
Yeah,
right?
Because I'm on this side of the table, and you can't get me.
He's got a long reach, bud.
No. Need that.
But yeah, so like I agree with Jay. I think the first 2, 3 gives you a better read on those 2 on that day than the best of 3. So I think that's something that if I'm running a tournament or have any say in it, I'm going to try to push for, at least for a little while, to see how that shakes out down the line.
Yeah. Ideally, from a fighter's perspective and someone who likes tournaments, I would like to see that of a better showcase of talent, a better opportunity to actually have a more accurate read on the top 8 fighters, if that's what we cut to.
Right.
And that spectators having a good show. Because before, they're like, yeah, whatever, and they move on. Where at this last event, we actually had a deck on the hill that you could look down.
Oh, I loved being Statler and Waldorf from the balcony.
It's so fun.
It we missed that aspect because we haven't really had that culture before. But getting to heckle, hassle, and all of that, brilliant. If you can engage in the audience, and that's what you had talked about before, where in other sports, you're applauding the players. For at least in Winter's Edge, from what we've seen, no one's clapping, no one's cheering. No
Get a good shot or something like that every now and then.
Yeah, but like no one really cares other than the fighters because it's very individualist. Like you care about yourself and you're focused on you and got to get the next guy. But you're not really watching like Lucas spins and gets the hip like, yeah, everybody cheers.
But at what cost?
But it's that if you give them a good show,
Yeah.
and you give them that accuracy of like when you see the top 8, you believe that they should be there and you're going to get that good show.
You don't feel like anyone snuck in by accident, basically.
Yeah.
So a couple of other things that I wanted to talk about here. And by the way, there's more tournament formats than what we've mentioned here. We talked pretty heavily about the Warlord sports style because we use it here in our kingdom. We talked about what I'll just call a regular bracketing system. The same thing that you see in basketball, football, everything else. There's the Hog Cup as well. Where,
the MHOG Cup thing.
Yeah, where you have small pits of people, and then whoever wins that pit moves on to another bracket, and you do it that way. Usually, if you're going to have like a top 8, then each pit would have 2 people that move forward. There's a lot of different things that you can look up, and there's tournament formats outside of that as well that I've seen. You can look a lot of these up if you're looking for more information. Before you run any format, though, be sure to do some research on the pros and cons of that type of format and decide if it's going to fit well with what you're wanting to do. I wanted to touch on something else that's going to be really important in tournaments, and that is your Reeves. In the example that I gave, I had 2 friends that came with me to Reeve, and let's say we found another one, so we were at 4. But what do I need to look for when I am getting Reeves for my tournaments? What are qualities that a Reeve needs to have?
This is where I think that culturally we fail as Amtgard at, because we offhandedly say that the better the fighter, the better the Reeve they'll make for a tournament format. And they're not wrong, because what the thing is when you're a fighter and you're trying to be you're on the higher end of things, your understanding of when things are late, how things land and stuff like that is far higher than Joe Blow, who just sometimes decides to be like, hey, I'll be a volunteer and help you Reeve, right? But we fail by not training these people who are volunteers who may not be able to physically fight as well. That doesn't mean they can't understand what's going on, right? So we fail on the aspect of teaching this knowledge to people who are not fighters. Now, that being said, those people who do this, who are not fighters, who want to Reeve, they kind of have to want to learn this as well for this to work.
Yeah, you almost have to practice Reeving.
Yes, yeah.
I mean, I've been on that side of the coin where like I'm not a bad fighter. I'm never going to be a warlord, I think, but like I have when we did the what was it, quals?
Yeah, it's a quals.
Ago, and like it's me and Flo Reeving, and like Flo had a bad angle because he was on the other side of a board, and like it was you and Zeb in the final whatever, and it was like to make another Dragon Ball Z, like Gohan versus Trunks in that tournament. Like it was just like blurs and smacks and grunts. It might have been Japanese porn, and like and then like you both turned to me and you went, "Who won?" And I'm like, "Bro, I don't know. I'm still catching up with what all you guys just did. And that was crazy. That looked real cool. Do it again, maybe."
But
I won.
But this is one of the things too, is like being able to say as a Reeve that I'm not sure what happened, not feeling. There's a few things that I think really stand out to me for Reeving that you need to be able to do if you're going to Reeve. Like there's other qualities that we can talk about, helping them get their shot clocks up. In the example that Lucas gave, where Lucas fights with us all of the time. He fights at speed all of the time. And there's still times where things just happen in such a quick or weird way that you still can't read it. But when we're talking about trying to get a Reeve, for me, the big things are, first and foremost, someone that is going to keep their head about them. You have to stay calm. You, in many ways, set the tone for the ring that you are Reeving. If you are yelling and screaming at people, even if you're doing it in a not bad way, you're not, saying, "What the fuck are you doing?" If I'm just going, "Arm, arm, arm, arm," over and over again, that is setting the tone for the ring that I'm in. I should be communicating calmly and clearly to the fighters that I am looking over in my ring. And to do that, I have to keep my head about me. Second is that you should be able to clearly describe what happened when requested, and being able to say, "I'm not sure," or "I didn't have a good line on that," is an acceptable answer. It sucks. It sucks for the people that are fighting. It sucks for you because you as a Reeve feel like you have this obligation to be able to see everything in the ring. But you can't sometimes. Sometimes you miss stuff. And the fighters that are in the ring need to be able to step back and say, "I know this person is trying their best and they just missed this." And you need to be able to say to yourself, one, if this is something that you feel you should have been able to do, let's put in some more practice. But there's also the idea that sometimes, no matter how experienced you are, there's going to be something that happens that you just say, "I don't know."
Yep. So I want to point out one thing, too. This kind of came up in Xander's episode, and I don't think I was quite as alert as I could have been for his episode, so my bad, man. But Xander said to let the fight happen and then go back out and make the calls. And that's really important because ideally as a Reeve, especially as an active one, that you want to give the players the chance to make the calls first and then, clear up the confusion. And if you immediately start chanting "arm" or something like that, you could negatively affect that fight. And in a top 8 situation,
Yes.
That is a very problematic thing. In the Iron Man, it's not as much, but you shouldn't be doing that there either.
I mean, you can from the sidelines throw off an Iron Man if you just go "whoa" and you're not even in the tournament or a Reeve.
Sometimes,
still
yeah.
fuck 'em
Yeah,
up. Like,
Pat, I really wish that when you're...
You would come back more?
Yeah, absolutely. We if I'm not fighting, me and you can hang out really close to the rings. It'll be
Miss
a
you,
problem for everybody else.
Miss you, Stinkfoot. But yeah, so clear, calm communication. Second, you need to be able to actually call shots. I don't mean like, "Oh, are you seeing this?"
Timing is really the big thing.
I mean that if Zeb and Flo are in a ring and you see something, you need to be able to say something. Not say something because you're like, "Oh, that's Sir Gillen and Sir Flo." You need to be able to speak up. And this is where I draw a distinction that say just because you're a good fighter doesn't automatically mean you're a good Reeve. People have different temperaments and personalities. Some people do not like that level of, it's not really confrontation, but directness.
Accountability.
Yes. So let's start here and say, before you decide that you want to volunteer for something like this, do not volunteer just because no one else is volunteering. Ask yourself this. Be honest with yourself and say, am I comfortable making calls like this on the two, the people that I have the most respect for in that ring, right? Whoever they are, pick out two of them. If those two had a confrontation and then something happened, would I be comfortable making a call on it? And if the answer to that question, when you're being honest with yourself, you don't have to ask it out loud. When you're being honest with yourself, if the answer to that question is no, you do not need to reeve in that particular thing.
I would say you don't need to do it at kingdom level. I think you should be actually doing that at local level anyway, because you're going to have to bring confidence in your skill as a reeve at some point. So again, this is where like I'm a big preacher for local level tournaments because I feel like that's the best way to ladder up to those prior to kingdom level win and placement things. And that's why I think that kingdom level tournaments should only be the open format and not like restricted by this is the 3 and under, 5 and under, whatever kind of tournaments. This is the showcase. This is we get the tournament done, get it out of the way, and then get on with the rest of the Amp Guard stuff, because the tournament is not the only thing of Amp Guard.
Right.
So, unfortunately, I'm not as familiar with the MHOG Cup style. Like I have seen one done at an Olympiad in a symposium, but I haven't deep dived on that one. That's kind of why I'm not focused on it. And I think that's kind of a disservice in some ways to this episode. But again,
Dog, you wore garb. You're ahead of all of us. It's fine.
This is my garb.
that's just because I was at part today.
You have New Mexico track pants on.
Yeah.
I'm
Did you
wearing
run
garb
track for New
pants.
Mexico?
Yeah, can everybody see
Yeah.
my garb?
Those are garb pants circa 2004.
Albuquerque, baby.
But like again, like my point with this episode was that I want to explore the why we are doing different parts of a tournament mechanically. And if those don't line up with what you are trying to do, or there's a lot of complaints because of something happened, maybe you need to look at why those complaints were happening. One of the big things was that, for that one Ironman, the line was too long, which, okay, what kind of problems are existing in this too long of line, right?
What if the real Iron Man was the friends we made in line along the way?
Yeah, I mean, we did a
the
whole wave
You did
that
the
went
wave
like
back and forth
40
like
or
that.
30 or 40 or 50 people down. Like it was pretty
That
cool.
was the most organized Amp Guard had been in a long.
Oh my god, it was so good. And like Flo kind of makes it out to be a big thing that like it's a big thing to be a kingdom level reeve. But being a reeve at a local tournament or something like that, this is where you make your mistakes and things like that. Yeah, it's going to suck from time to time. Reeves make botch calls and everything like that. Oh, also, like, again, if you make a call as a reeve and both the players say, hey, man, that's not what happened, don't double down on your call. Let them make that call.
If the players agree.
Yeah,
let them.
absolutely. That's another real big thing that happens. In the top eights, don't rush your fighters either. There's a lot of posturing and things that happen that are minor movements that you may not realize because you're not physically way up on the upper echelon of the fighters.
Yeah.
That's happening. Don't just realize that's a thing. Like you don't have to understand like posturing for lane and things like that or whatever, but you need to realize that is part of fighting.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that was actually a big thing from this past event that we had. So hammering home, reeves are ridiculously important and should be your number one concern.
Yep.
We had during that Ironman, the reeves were instructed that there would be timed bouts and to keep it in a certain period of time generically, 10 seconds, 15 seconds, that if they were just standing there, to move them along and hurry them up, and if they still didn't, they were dead. Again, not to say that is right or wrong. We've run tournaments where we actively had you at the beginning, the first 15 minutes of an Ironman was 30 seconds, the last 10 minutes was 10 seconds, and then the last 2 minutes was 5 seconds, and it just ended in
bad.
Yeah, a lot of injury. But in this, there were some bad calls from the Reeves because, as Jeff said, the posturing. You were literally set up like, okay, I'm feeling you out. We're shifting. I don't like that. We'll reshift. We'll move. No shots were thrown, but we were positioning, and the Reeves would go.
The fight is still happening.
Correct. Yeah. But the Reeves, who didn't quite get that or were specifically instructed, move them along. They're like, all right, go ahead and kiss. Get in there. Do the thing.
Now, yeah.
Yeah, I was like, nope, get them out of there.
Yeah.
Is not a good tournament. It doesn't showcase really what the fighters are trying to do. There was, it's been a little while, but PTQ and was it Lanky? I think had an awesome.
That has been a little while.
Yeah, it has been. But they've talked about it in the sense that like their finals lasted like 30 minutes and not a shot was thrown because it was just posturing, moving around.
Yeah.
But with something like that, working with some of those same Reeves at another Dutchy level tournament, they were fantastic because that was not a part of the rule set that they were given. So the Reeves were good, but if they're being told by the tournament organizer, this is how you run it, knowing essentially what you're having to face is better than just generically saying, move them right along.
Yeah, and I want to double down that Reeves are allowed to make mistakes. They're not always going to be perfect.
Yeah,
if you're
absolutely.
good enough, you're still going to be able to overcome that. Like Reeves in the NFL, referees in the NFL are paid a lot more than our fucking Reeves, and
and make mistakes.
A ton of mistakes, dude.
I mean, on the paid aspect, we need to be looking at service level awards and stuff like that to give to the Reeves and things like that too. Like that's another culturally problem that I think is overlooked.
Rose? Is it Rose? I guess
I
that we give.
think that would be the way to go.
God, I was a monarch. I should really fucking know.
Well, no, that's the thing.
That was weeks ago. We was partying.
We was partying. I mean, I gave one of my Reeves a Walker in the middle. That's something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I think that's a really good thing to do too.
My opinion, he deserved it.
Yeah,
he was fantastic.
Absolutely. Big shout out to Aldrich there.
Yeah.
This is the kind of the weird thing that I don't see Reeves being awarded much of anything. And I'm Monarch now, so I'm going to probably do that. I just need to pay attention to who's Reeving and things like that. So maybe your kingdom doesn't have this problem, which would be great. I would love for that to be the case.
If I may interject with another concern with this that I've run across too is if you have poor Reeves for whatever reason, or they're Reeving in such a way that
I'm just going to say uneducated.
That's fair. Whatever the reason.
Yeah.
Certain players have stressed their methodology, because this is all in a perfect world. Now, all of a sudden, I start cheating. I'm not taking your shots. Surprise, I just ruined it for a lot of people. How do you actively go against that? Well, if
every Reeve gets to punch one guy.
I love it. But if the Reeves aren't punching them, so certain players are looking at it in the sense of, well, if you're not taking my shot at this level, I'll dial it up a little bit. Did you take that one? Okay, no. And then I lay you out. Not that much, but in the sense that you just keep cranking up, hit a little bit harder.
This is effectively the Ditchfield justice aspect.
Yes, because I know it has different names across all the different things, but the justice system, the player justice system.
Yeah.
Or your judge, jury, and executioner. If they feel that the Reeves aren't calling shots appropriately, they'll have that Ditchfield Justice.
Ditchfield Justice is my 5-finger death punch cover band.
Listen, you can't do those things if you're going to make Flo.
I can't.
If you're going to make Flo shut up about it.
Too many. I get a turn at the wheel.
Thank you.
You're calling him off. You
I'm
just can't
Jesus.
do him
Let
either.
me take the wheel for a minute.
So that alone, where I see why that is a thing, I do not agree with that methodology, but that falls solely on the Reeves, where if you're Reeving, you're not taking my shots. Me as a player, if I'm getting upset and I have to take it into my own hands, that does not mean I hit you harder. That means I go to you, my Reeves, say, hey, this is what I'm noticing, which some players have, and then those Reeves did nothing, and it continued. And then that's where they're like, well, it's time to escalate. Still, I disagree. But that's where the Reeves are the most important aspect to the tournament to make sure it functions appropriately.
Well, and as a Reeve, you don't have to go, hey, buddy, you're out. Somebody called you out. Like, you go, okay, cool, I'll watch him.
Yeah, there's plenty of ways to constructively do that.
And don't be afraid to throw a problem player out of the tournament.
Oh, yeah.
Afraid to throw a punch.
Like, I used to give this speech when I was running tournaments a lot way back in the day, where I would open up every single tournament and say, "Hey, my name is Flo. These are my Reeves for today. We've got Cabbage, we've got Subway, we've got Teflon. All of us are going to be Reeving for you. Please say hi to your Reeves." Pause for everyone to
Hello,
say hi.
Reeves.
Hi, Reeves.
So a couple of ground rules that we're going to lay out for the tournament. This is the format that the tournament's going to be in. Here are the time limits if you have any. Blah, blah, blah. Explain all of the rules. And I always ended it with this. The number one thing that I want to see in this tournament today is respect. Respect amongst each other as fighters, and respect to the Reeves that have taken time to volunteer and call your shots. There is a chance that one of the Reeves out here is either going to make a bad call or going to make a call that you disagree with. There is a chance that that's going to happen. None of us hate you. We're not personally trying to insult you or get you out of the tournament or anything like that. All of the Reeves here are going to be doing their best to call the fights as fairly as possible. If you have a problem with a call, while in the ring, your Reeves call stands. Period. If the fighters can agree, and again, this is part of the rules that I would explain, but you covered it earlier. I always tell them that if two fighters agree, that this is how it works out. But while it's going on, your Reeves will be the ultimate source. Feel free to go up and talk to them later about a call that was made. And after our last episode, I actually wrote up 5 rules that I feel like really sums up what Reeves should be focusing on. It is in order. Number 1, I will remain calm in action and tone. Number 2, I will clearly and directly report what I saw and heard to the fighters and the other Reeves when needed. 3, I will let the fighters call their own fight. 4, if I know that a shot landed, I will give the fighters a few seconds to call it before I call it. 5, if I believe that a shot landed, but I do not know that a shot landed, I will seek confirmation from the other Reeves without stopping the fight. This is where you may see some Reeves, depending on how your people have done it before, look over to the other Reeves and hold their finger up or hold their hand up or something like that.
So this is a thing that is not necessarily culturally around everywhere. Like, Jay developed a system of Reeving that has been carried out in Winter's Edge that's kind of worked, and it's kind of like a razor. It's kind of like a soccer referee, sideline referee thing where, like, they could call a penalty, but they don't get the final call. They shake their flag vertically. And so you're raising your hand saying, I have seen a questionable thing. Did you also see a questionable thing? So you're using body language instead of vocalization to communicate between the Reeves, so that you don't slow down or affect the fight negatively with intervening with the fight in the middle of a grind.
Because I could be wrong. Like, this could be a situation where a board is blocking my vision and Jay is on the other side, and I hear something. You know, you can hear sometimes when something slaps a glove, and you can hear when it hits the glove and then hits a forearm or something like that. So I think I hear something. And instead of saying, hold, I point over or I do something to get Jay's attention, and Jay shakes his head and says, no. He had the view, I did not. He's confirming with me, no, that absolutely did not hit. That was a good block. I don't know what you heard, and I don't care. The fighters never stopped fighting. If I had stopped, it could have killed momentum for one side or the other. It could have killed a setup that was coming up. I mean, it can literally change the face of the tournament.
And I mean, let's talk about psychology, right? You talk about losing that first fight and what happens to the fight after it. Like, again,
yeah, absolutely.
Getting called out for shrugging a shot on my first fight of the mat,
and then maybe taking a shot that's technically not a legal shot.
Right,
too.
exactly.
Right.
Like, that'll throw everybody off their game if it happens at the wrong time.
So to make sure to interject, when I created, it was kind of in a vacuum that turns out a lot of other kingdoms have used and other games have used. I just accidentally found what other people had
Algebra
found.
was discovered twice.
Yeah, that kind of thing. So
Both of those bastards. How dare they?
yeah. But yeah, and the idea of being able to non-verbally communicate to not interrupt the fight, but also very, very poignant points. Just because I say that hit you and you didn't know it doesn't mean you shrugged the shot.
Yeah, Xander pointed out that, hey, adrenaline's high. sometimes.
Yes.
Adrenaline is a pain suppressant, which is also effectively a feeling suppressant.
Correct. So it's Xander pointed it out completely. He's like, hey man, you're out. Again, we're not booing you off the stage. It's like,
Yeah, it's not fuck you, Shrugger. It's, hey man, you just missed a shot. No big deal. Get out of here.
Yeah.
yes, let them make the case for themselves. If it's like every time you step in the ring and we're having to usher you out from that, that's a problem. You're shrugging shots, but we're fast. It's not always easy to catch what's going on.
Yeah.
And honestly, if you've got a player who's doing that, take
Talk to them.
Yeah, talk to them and take them aside and be like, hey man, you're done for this tournament. Like, straight up. This is kind of a spicy take in a way, because I've never seen this happen, though I'm prepared to do it. I've not seen it so bad that I need to go in and actually intervene yet, but there has been some edge cases where I probably should have.
Really?
I've seen some people lose their temper in tournaments to the point that they should have been taken out, especially back in the day.
I know what you're talking about.
I'm actually
remember
not
that
even
one.
talking about that one. But especially back in the day down in Florida when we were younger and our tempers were not good. They ran hotter than they do now, right?
It's because our joints still worked.
It's hard to be really angry when I can't lift my arm above my shoulder.
Yeah.
You.
Yep.
Also, when I've been traveling, when I've done some of the Olympiads out of Kingdom, some of the other tournaments, out in Texas and other places, I've seen people just straight lose their fucking temper, and they either were removed from the field.
Mm-hmm.
I remember Arrakis where they took somebody off. They're like, no
Good
man,
on
you're
them.
done. Yeah, you're not going to do any of that.
But I have seen, like what you said, the idea of self-defeating in that sense, that there was a match that I've reeved where player one is better than player two.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Player one throws patented shot that always kills, and it didn't. Huh, that's weird. Throw it again, and it didn't. Gets angry, throws again and again, harder and harder and harder, at which point player two kind of says, whoa, what's going on?
I must be doing something wrong.
Yep. Player one says, Reeves, are you not going to call this clear shrugger?
Yeah.
And we just, no, it didn't land. But being called out directly like that for shrugging shots, embarrassed in front of everybody else. Match number 2 happened.
Hey, player one is a fucking shitbag, by the way.
I've said as much.
Player one, go fuck yourself.
Ready Player 2.
Yeah. And then player 2 for the second round, well, he's very timid. He's like, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I really don't want to fight you again because
he
you're a dick
lost.
bag.
And every time after that, any engagement they had, didn't even throw a shot,
Yeah.
was already done for. That was the closest point I'd ever got to throwing somebody out of a tournament
Fair.
for that reason.
Yeah, I couldn't see a case for that. Absolutely.
Jay, I know you
That's
got
also dangerous.
notes that we had taken because we had our earlier conversations.
Holy
but
fuck, we're an hour in and you guys are just now getting the notes?
No, we covered a bunch of it. I just want to
Okay.
make sure we didn't miss any, because this is an episode that I feel like it can be super dense, and I think there's a lot to unpack in different aspects.
This is one of our more pedagogical episodes.
Yeah, yeah.
Like there's a lot of
That's a good word.
to be learned content.
Hey,
We-
thanks. That's actually from work. Our boss says pedagogy. a
God,
lot.
we work in the .edu sphere, so we get it a lot.
Thank you, word of the day calendar.
Yep. If you had that on yours, you can eat a piece of candy from the candy jar. I don't know how this works.
Oh, it's like an advent calendar for words.
Did I mention Advent calendar for Amped Guard, or was that a fugue state that I had?
I think you did mention it, but it was like at Park last week or something.
Ah, shit. Okay, Advent calendar for Amped Guard. Somebody make that a thing. I don't have anything other than that, so just do it.
You just get like a fucking stocking cover for the first day, and then like the last one's like a fucking wax caliber that you somehow pull out of the damn thing.
Like, I swear to God, I wake up and just write this shit in my notebook, and then I'm like, Advent calendar for Amped Guard, and then I go back to sleep, and I look at it the next day, and I'm like, what did that mean? So somebody make something of that.
All right. So generically, some of the notes, we've covered most of them. Escalating bad, better reeving. Yes. We didn't really cover like just attitude, the culture of what we're doing, why we're doing tournaments, really like what's the purpose of having better sportsmanship, things.
I feel
along
like we
those
got into that a fair amount.
Yeah.
Like, what's the purpose of your tournament?
like we said, like 4 pits. I juggled around with the idea of 8 pits. So if we're going
I
big,
like. By the way, we didn't get to talk about
volunteers
this very
becomes the
much.
issue.
Correct.
Right? So, like I said, I want 2 reeves per pit, and then I want one
at
person
a minimum.
Yeah, at a minimum, and I want one person to be a line thing. And if we're not doing cascading, I think cascading is actually a really good idea. I just don't know how many volunteers we'll need. I don't know if you'll need 4 line people. Hey, get onto this one. Hey, get onto this one. Because there's a lot to keep up with as a fighter.
I mean, generically, again, bad guy. I'm cheating, so I make it to 4, and then I just kind of loop back to 4.
Yeah.
And then loop back to 4, and I just
because it's a
follow.
better line for
Because
you.
who's actually checking that?
Right,
That's
right.
the unfortunate aspect. Of
Yeah.
One Reeve per player. This is your battle buddy.
I mean, Xander said that's basically what they did for their.
I mean,
their
if we
4v4s
actually
or
had
whatever it
the
was.
volunteers,
I don't want to do it if Xander did it.
Xander did it. Xander did it. It's like South Park, right?
Yeah.
Or Simpsons, rather.
No, it's South Park. It's,
Well, Simpson did it was from South
oh, yeah.
Park.
I
Yeah.
don't want to do it if Diddy did it.
Yeah.
2 points I don't think we covered. One, because again, Magic is the end all be all. So for 3rd and 4th place in a seeded bracket, to save time, it's already decided.
Yeah.
So if your eventual first place, so say we are in the semifinals, it's Jeff and myself, and then you two.
Mm-hmm.
So I win, you win. And then in our match, I win.
Yeah.
They don't need to fight it out. Because I'm the winner,
Yeah.
that means he lost to the winner. He gets 3rd place. You play 2nd because you beat that one.
This is
You
basically strength of schedule.
Yes.
Right?
So this is 4th place. So this saves on time. It cuts down. And again, hopefully it's not like, well, I was really 3rd versus 4th. It's no one cares about those anyway.
I mean,
But-
if it was an NCAA style bracket, it would be that I am 2nd place. Like that's how that would work.
correct. But I'm saying for these two, for the 3rd
Yeah,
and
okay.
4th place, they don't have to fight it out. We don't have to bring people
I think
back in.
NCAA works that way too. Yeah.
I thought that it did, but
I don't
Yeah, a lot of-
remember.
Yeah.
I don't remember, but I will tell you that because of the way that the point structure is,
hockey.
at least,
I sling cardboard, not sports, sir.
yeah, the way that the point structure is done, at least in our kingdom, we have a gap between 1st and 2nd place. So I'm probably going to get these incorrect, but I think that it's 5
First place is 5.
and then 3
Yes.
for 2nd,
Mm-hmm.
2
1.
for 3rd, 1 for
4th.
for 4th. I actually don't think fighting 3rd and 4th takes that long. If you've been, especially in this situation where you've been running 2 pits anyways, you should have enough Reeves that you could run 3rd and 4th at the exact same time that you're fighting 1st and 2nd.
I don't like doing that because I want the top bracket to have the most attention to it.
Yeah, it's a
From a
viewership issue.
So all 4 like a Reeve on.
Not necessarily all 4 Reeves, although that could be good. I still think that 2 Reeves is just better.
Well-
because if you're moving around, you're never running into anything or
Yeah,
anything.
the other
like
2
that.
could be setting
Well, let
up for
me
the
make
next.
the point that
Yeah.
your fighters do need a break. So if you just had, if him and I, yes, fuck you. If him and I just fought, right, and he took 1st, I took 2nd. Great, you guys can fight it out for 3rd and 4th while him and I fucking take a minute off. Right?
Sure.
Like that doesn't.
No, we just got 1st and 2nd. It's time for a new bracket.
But yeah.
So we got our break there.
I agree
still
that
have to
it.
fight it
Technic. Okay, this actually goes back to this was
There's time for
Potatoes
that's what I'm saying.
post.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, we can't forget about that one.
Conveniently, that like I think happened today
Yeah, something
as of
like
the
that.
recording.
I agree with you that it saves time not to fight 3rd and 4th, but in a situation where it came down to the very, I am going to tell you, for me, if it came down to a situation where at the very end, I lose ultimately by 1 or 2 points, and I was a 3rd or 4th in a couple of the brackets, and was facing someone that I absolutely believe that I could have beaten, that I am going to be frustrated with that. I won't. You guys will have posted up the rules for the tournament ahead of time, so I mean, I'm not going to direct my frustration at you who organized the tournament necessarily, but I will be vocal about my frustration of, to my friends at least.
Absolutely.
This is also part of the reason why you should be posting all of the rules that you are
Yes.
following for your tournament
And this
ahead
is
of
the
time.
point. Like, there is no, this is the correct way to do it.
Right.
These are things you can run. And my reason for that, by saving time and just moving on. But you're correct. You could be missing points because you're fighting tooth and nail to get as many as you can. And if you can beat to get 3rd, to get those extra points, absolutely. But if this is how it's run,
Edit that out.
it's it's going to be one of those where if these are the rules, that's how it'll run. If not, then you are correct. Then we would fight 3rd and 4th. There's no right or wrong.
Yeah, the worst thing that's ever happened for in a tournament for me. We keep talking about bad things that could happen. You know, it could be that a call's missed. It could be that the third and fourth thing comes up. The absolute worst thing that has ever happened to me in any of the tournaments that I've fought, and I have fought tournaments in what was the majority of the kingdoms in the game at one point, is not having the rules clearly explained, and then the Reeves presenting something as if, oh, well, of course this is what we're going to do. And all of the fighters in the tournament going, what the absolute fuck are you talking about?
Everyone knows it's pistols at dawn. Come on.
Yeah, right?
Yep.
10 paces. Get out there, bud.
So
Tournament on Thursday.
And
3
here's the
p.m.
thing is if you post up and you post that you are not fighting third and fourth, and like the majority of your kingdoms like, hey man, we actually like doing that, then you should cave on that kind of point, but don't cave necessarily on a full format.
Can this also kind of hinge around your event schedule? Because if you don't have anything planned after the tournament,
Yeah,
add
I mean,
a
it
little
could,
jam
but
time.
I don't like changing anything
Fair.
day of because I don't want to create an argument based on like
I didn't
accidentally
read your post.
trying.
I had no service on my drive in.
I would have
Yeah.
been so much better if I knew this one thing.
Well, even if you
right?
go to even a further malicious aspect of, hey, my bro can beat that guy, so I'm going to change it right here.
I've seen that before too with some point systems.
Mhm.
I mean, this is everything with the tournament, though. You announce it. I think per our Kapora, at least, you're required to announce it.
For a major kingdom level tournament for our kingdom, it has to be announced 3 months. No,
2 months, I thought.
6 weeks?
6 weeks, I think.
I don't know.
I don't remember.
Sometime.
It's more than a month if I remember correctly. God, I can't believe I can't
6
remember it off the top of my head. I think
Yeah,
it's
King.
6 weeks. Yeah, right. Good
That's
job on
weeks
that
ago.
Kapora test I did.
Who's
Yeah.
partying. Yeah.
Yeah.
Make sure your Kapora, you're announcing things in time frame for your Kapora if it's in there.
Well, I'm just saying, per a major kingdom level tournament, you actually wouldn't be able to change that stuff day of. Like per Kapora.
You should not be. Yeah.
And for any tournament, I think it should fall. Like even if it's not major kingdom level, you still stick to the rules that you put up ahead of time.
And-
Unless you have something where, like, you plan a tournament for 20 people and only 8 people showed up. Okay, we're going to change the styles.
Yeah, so I think that knowing that when to bail for contingency styles is something a good idea to have, right?
Yeah.
Because we had the idea of running, I think it was a Warlord Sports style tournament for a women's fighter thing, but then only 10 people showed up. And
Correct.
boy, that doesn't feel great because that's 20 minutes of fighting that's not really super useful to cut 2 people out of it.
Yeah.
So learning how to have buy-ins into a bracketed system and learning how to do double elimination, because at that low of fights, you still want to have a good spread. So you probably want to do a double elimination. You will have time. If it's
Flexible
something like that.
backup
Yeah, flexible backup plans.
Yeah.
And also, you don't have to have those as fleshed out as your normal run thing. But do note, like, hey, if not enough people show up, I'm going to do a single elimination bracket.
Yeah.
Or something like that.
And I also one more thing, and then I also have seen this too. I have seen a situation where a major rule got overlooked. A major part of the tournament, like let's say the third and fourth stuff or something like that, was overlooked. The way that the Reeve handled it, this was at an Olympiad, and the way that the Reeve handled it was so cool. They actually said all fighters step forward. You will vote by either staying where you are, that's a yes, or stepping backwards, that's a no.
Super fucking cool. I like that.
And the fighters, we said this was an overlook on our
You're
part.
the people this would affect.
Yeah,
you
you're
tell us if you care.
Yep, you're the people this would affect. You're going to vote. Everybody gets a single vote. Winner will be whichever one gets the most. We apologize that this was overlooked. It won't happen again.
That's really good.
Yeah. So
Yeah, I mean, I fucked up something one of the times too because I fucked up seeding the top 8. I had so 1 and 8, 2 and 7, and I flipped something in the middle somewhere. I don't remember exactly what it was, but I flipped one of the things in the middle by accident, and then I went
a
back.
lot like 7s when you've been drinking.
Yeah, right. Definitely drunk. No, I'm kidding. But I went back and I was like, hey guys, I fucked this up. I need these 2 people to fight because this legitimately is not what is you guys fought the thing, and I feel like it's unfair, but I feel like it's unfair the rest of everybody too, that if I don't fix the thing. So I went back and had them fight the correct fight. And I mean, hey, I should have caught flack for that potentially, but I came forward and said, hey, I fucked up. We're going to fix it this way.
Be accountable.
Yep.
Yep. So what was your
So two things. Apologies, circling back to where your cardio is terrible. That
Buddy.
I just found about it. I don't know too much, but Tato posted something where he did a sport or a Warlord sport style, I believe, where it was the Ironman portion, all of them, and then the brackets after.
That's
Yeah.
how I like to run them for time's
That's
sake.
how we
So
have run
he-
them for quite some time.
Correct, but he was not a big fan, or in theory, from the very little of the post I read, it was forwarded to me, that it's just back to back to back. It runs you ragged. You don't have times to. He was talking about getting some more food, protein bars, stretching, health wise, things like that. Where those are two different ways to run it.
Oh yeah.
That I'm a fan of, like what we said, it's all of the Ironman portion and then the top 8 brackets.
Yeah.
So, yes, it's more of a cardio run, but it also doesn't waste as many people's time because if
You can run a ding the bell on another field area or something like that for those who don't want to participate in the tournament but still want to play Amp Guard or something like that.
well, also the fact of like once we get through all the Ironmen and we have roughly 8, we'll say 12 people contestants total are the only ones in those top 8. Everyone else can go do whatever they want. They can go play Amp Guard.
Yeah.
Yeah, they can get ready
Where
for the class game. They can
If
go eat, they can
we
get
do
whatever.
our bracket first, and then we do the top 8, I'm like, well, I didn't make the top 8, so I'm just standing there watching them.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay,
So
cool.
I've
now
seen-
I'm muscle seized up. Time for the next bracket. This is great.
Fair.
I've also seen like you lose participants potentially from not doing the top 8s or the Ironmans all in a row. I've seen where you do a bracket or an Ironman, get your bracket, do the bracket, and the next one, people fucking left because they didn't make the bracket on the other one.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a situation where
Bro, I did that at Symposium because it was so fucking cold.
yeah.
Yep.
It was
Just
like
left.
I walked
Yeah.
up and I was like, "Did I bracket? No, deuces."
Gone.
I went to the feast hall. I was like, "I'm gonna fucking die."
Yeah.
And it's not a right or wrong thing.
No. Be
Have-
aware of these
yeah,
things.
Be
Yeah.
on the understanding of this is why we run it a certain way. Here are some of the pitfalls. Here are some of the pros. And you can run it any way you want. There's
Right.
no right or wrong.
Yeah, that was
Right.
kind of my idea with this episode was that there's no right or wrong here necessarily, but these are things that I've examined problems with but for potential fixes. Like I'm not looking to be, hey, I got the fucking standard. Let's fucking
Yeah.
put this gold standard here.
End all be all.
Yeah.
All right. So one last note that we've got here. Wounds regen versus not.
So this is more specifically
Right,
like
so
Winter's
hard with
Edge
this
and a Neverwinter thing. It may get come around on a couple other places, but this is realistically targeted at us.
wounds regen.
Yeah, no, I feel like 100% wounds regen. Now, you can make the argument that if you streak in a wounds retain area, that it is a stronger streak, but at the same time, you can come into a armed flow as your first fight.
Yep.
And that really wasn't a great fight for Flo or for you, realistically.
Yeah.
So,
But I still killed him.
yeah, right. So I much prefer the wounds regen. So what I'm meaning is that we're in an Iron Man line. Me and Jay are the first two. We fight. Jay legs me, but I kill him. I maintain being legged the entirety of all of the fights that come through after that. And then a regen would be we fight, he legs me, I kill him, I stand back up and fight the next person full up. And
Or at
I
least
much
have-
prefer that.
Yeah, it's
There's two things actually for this. If you run a wounds retain, you are going to get more boardmen, flat out,
Ye-
because it is statistically better that you run board, I feel like, than pole or two stick or something like that, because you have a higher chance of catching a lucky block than you did with the other
You
format.
effectively have armor that doesn't break down.
as a
Right.
longtime Florentiner in tournaments. Jay and I, at one point in our younger career, just said we are not going to be able to fight Florentine into this. Now, maybe that's because we weren't the best Florentiners in the world, but what would end up happening is the errant newbie shot where they just unicorn charge forward, and then you've killed them, but the Reeve doesn't call it that way, right? The Reeve wasn't experienced enough, didn't see it, whatever, and
You're stuck with an arm.
and now I'm stuck armed when I should not be.
Yeah.
Whereas the board person just watched them unicorn charge in and went, hit. Hey man, good fight, and patted them on the butt as they were on their way out.
Fair.
That was it happened enough that we said we're just not going to risk it and went and picked up board for that part of the tournament.
I mean, I would also make the argument that it's a public safety issue when you have like polearm brackets and wounds retained because you give me one arm to swing a pole. Good luck. I have one move.
I don't
will
want the
say
pole arm.
there's a lot of times that whenever we went to the great weapon thing during the, because we run our weapon master typically as a warlord sports style, so we do each bracket, and great is typically one of those brackets.
Yeah.
Because the participation rate is much lower typically with great, we have moved that to a bracket style ahead
also
of
safety
time.
reasons.
For safety reason. I want to give a shout out to DH though. When we went up for that one, they did not. They kept it a Iron Man portion to cut the top 8 on that as well.
Good on you
And
guys for
honestly,
more than 8 polearms.
for one, that was a thing. A lot of great weapons out there, which was cool. And everyone took their time to safely step in the ring, allow for a safe start on the fight, and go. And big shout out to that.
That's respect for the people that you are fighting with. You got to remember that these people, even if you're in another kingdom, in another time zone, and whatever, these are your brothers. These are your sisters. You know, there has to be a base level of respect amongst everybody that's fighting there, because I've seen so many people get hurt because in that specifically in an Iron Man pole, because they would charge in like Don Quixote, you know, and then
skewer a poor kid.
Yeah.
But it has given me some thought to maybe we should still hold it that way, but we have to make sure that the line and all the players realize, hey man, you're stepping in, basically tapping and then going.
Well, as the Reeves for that, we had that discussion ahead of time. Let's watch for safety. Like,
sure.
We talked to all players, which was different than the other brackets. I'm like, this is what you want. This is what you could get.
Yeah.
That's another thing that
Welcome to the shit show. Let's go.
Yeah, right.
That's another thing when I used to read very often that I would do is, because we would have people that tried to jump, like tap and immediately go for an arm. I have people tap and then take one step back. You have to take the step back before you can actually engage. This is after you've cut to top 8. Not during the Iron Man, but I could see where in a pole portion that tapping and then taking a step back would also be.
And we didn't have that rule, but that's what people did.
That's awesome.
Like that was just them
That's
with
awesome.
a good sense of camaraderie for their players.
Yeah, it was excellent.
But yeah, so knowing, again, there's no right or wrong to the regen versus retain, but you get 2 different kinds of tournament by doing so. Same with the point value, where for the longest time we did your kill count. So even in a bracket of 2 out of 3, if I kill you 2 times, I get 2 points to carry, and then I kill Lucas 2 times, that's 4 for me.
Mm-hmm.
Where other kingdoms will do, I win, I lose, I win, I carry 1 point. And then
This is in reference to streaks.
streaks, yes.
Never getting that 21, friend.
Unfortunately,
It's how you define a match. Is a match the culmination of your best 2 out of 3 fights, or is a match each individual fight that you have in there? So if I win 3, is that 3? Or if I win 3, is that 1?
yeah, because we used to ask, like, do you want, like, I win, do you want your 3rd fight?
No, fuck no. I need to carry this too.
And the idea was...
No, it's asking the losing player.
Oh.
Yeah, they get to... So
then absolutely. I want to fuck up your 2.
Right, and then if I win, I have my 3, or you could absolutely break my streak right there, and I would carry 0.
Or say, I don't think I'm going to win, but I don't want this motherfucker to get another kill, so nah, I'm going to sit down, take your 2.
Yeah, so then I don't get that extra point.
It's fair.
But again, no right or wrong. These are different ways to do it. But
Things to consider.
Yeah, establish the rules ahead of time.
We in Winter's Edge a few years back did discuss this, because the standard, well, I don't want to say standard, the tradition of many other kingdoms was to do it as the win your best of 3, that is 1 for your streak. And so we have adopted that overall, but we kind of don't care as much anymore, because we've been doing the Warlord Sports thing. So we've been using the streaks inside the Iron Man portions.
Part of the problem, you're correct, but they did full brackets with losers. So when you have
Yeah, in that time
75
frame.
players, you had a lot of brackets. So your one that you would carry, you could get to 21.
How long did that tournament take?
So,
long ass time.
How
This
many
is the thing.
business days did it?
Yeah,
like-
no joke. This is one of the things that I really liked about the Warlord Sports style tournaments is that it cut the time, not quite in half, but probably close.
Yeah.
Because we would do tournaments in Neverwinter where we did the brackets like Jay's talking about, and we started at 8 a.m. and we ended at like 3
Yeah.
Yeah.
3.
p.m.
Okay. If you were saying 3
Yeah.
a.m., I was gonna.
Surprise.
No, it's like they were 6 hours or so. Sometimes, probably about 6 hours, and it would be a walking lunch. You know, you're going and grabbing lunch while the tournament's going on.
Yeah, you're sending your bros because you bracketed it to go pick you up
Someone's getting
something.
a Fritos bag thrown at their head.
Yeah.
Yep, pretty much.
I remember a tournament that we had down in Neverwinter where you and I had bracketed multiple times, and you were in the Boganagas at the time and sent them to get food, and the Triads went and got me food because I was on the hot streak that day, right?
Yeah, you and I were dying and like, help, we need food.
Yeah.
We braided 3 Slim Jims together. This is your protein snack for the
Yeah,
day.
no joke.
Good luck.
Pretty much. But like with that kind of thing too, now with Warlord, or generically with that, cutting to a top 8, you can't get 21. So if the match
never.
is 1, there's not enough to get you there, even if you win all of them.
Well, this is kind of the weird thing
Well-
too. Prior to like some of this talk of standardization of that idea, right? There have been sword knights who said, "Cool, I'm going to compete in the open bracket and carry my streaks from my open bracket from one tournament to another tournament because I never lost in between these tournaments. So my streak carried through that way. That was a thing for a little bit.
Yep.
For some kingdoms.
Well, even in a top 8 scenario, if you assume that like it's individual wins and not our best of 3, even in a top 8, you're still
You're short.
That's 24 chances.
Oh no,
you
you're
have.
right. Yeah.
So you have to pretty much bowl a perfect game to ever get it there.
And that's 24 if they allow you the third on everyone.
If they allow you the third on every one. So if people don't like you and don't want you to be a warlord, then like, nah, you just go do the next one.
Mm-hmm.
And you're 16 maximum.
Yep.
So that's rough.
Pretty much.
It's kind of the interesting thing that
But remember with the
Changing it.
carried. So if I don't do well, but my semifinal and final, I get 3 and 3 and win the single sword bracket. I'm carrying 6
For the next.
to now start the Florentine bracket. So then I
That
already
is a
have
possibility,
plus
yeah.
6 to then move up.
Okay, fair. I didn't know that they carried over. From
well,
bracket to bracket.
that's a kind of not pedantic kind of thing that maybe kingdom to kingdom
No, it's
is
pedantic.
different.
I would
Yeah, I guess so.
Yep. But again, that open level of communication. There's been plenty of crazy stories we've heard of how tournaments are run, the point system, the rule set. Right or wrong, there isn't an answer, but if you step in, you should know how it plays.
See,
out.
this is why I think that tournament structure should actually be pulled from Arcampora, and then we have a voted on like tournament book that these are acceptable formats,
Agreed.
and yank that out, and then we can change the formats much easier in a tournament book because it would only need 51%.
Yeah.
For us, Winner's Edge, to move that along,
So
and
have the
it would take
Kaporis, they must be announced in, at the moment, 6 weeks, if not longer.
and follow the format in this
By the
appendix.
tournament
I think
organizer.
for everything,
Yeah.
Kapora should be about a third as long as it is, and it should just reference out to separate appendixes for almost everything.
Hey, we're working on it.
Yeah,
No,
well, the only
I have-
issue is
I
I
have
don't know
so
if an
little
appendix
faith.
would technically count as part of it. That would be the only thing. So I would put it as a it referenced the tournament booklet or something like that.
Sure, reference the booklet kept the champion booklet or whatever.
Or whatever, yeah, something that pulls it completely out of it as only a reference piece and not tied into it in
Yeah,
any
so
way.
you can change that without having to change your whole fucking Kapora, which
Right.
Yeah.
Because we talked about that earlier today with, we found one kingdom has pulled the open bracket. So they no
Fuck
longer
that.
do open. To my understanding, it's because the open bracket was just board again.
Yeah.
So
Fuck that.
why
You
have
can't fight fucking Florentine versus Board. You can't fight Madu. You can't fight Flail. Like, there's so much shit that you can't
What kingdom
do.
is this that I'm going to get my warlord in?
Yeah.
But also past that, when you look at it in the sense of, I heard it secondhand, so I don't want to state any
This
of
is the thing. Yeah.
But, and I could be very wrong, but then you also have with the Kapora set, with that, we talked about the archery. Where how do you run the archery bracket? There's
I can
like,
think about 6 ways
Oh,
that
yeah.
are legit okay, but like choosing one is a thing. Now I'll use a thing in Winter's Edge Core for the Weapon Master. So we have to have 5 categories.
Mhm.
Of those categories, there are 7 things that you can do. You can do single, Florentine, sword and board, open, great weapon. Now this is where it gets kind of interesting because it's a dated aspect of it. Archery, which is not the dated part, but Iron Man is the other part. So
Yeah.
welcome, guys, because I have been planning to do this at some point, and maybe I just go ahead and make this into fruition sometime. But we will do a Iron Man Warlord Sports thing to cut the top 8 to do a top 8 Iron Man. Good luck, guys. Fuck you.
Yep.
God,
20
a
to
top
30.
8 Iron Man sounds like just a blender.
No, it's perfect. Because are you going to follow the same? So it'll be like 20 to 30 minutes of Iron Man to cut to the top 8 of 20 to 30 minutes. Of just
I didn't even
Yeah.
think about stacking it all the way down.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Let's do it. Cardio.
If you're trying to demonstrate why that needs to be taken out, then I think it's a great idea.
I would fold that. I would fold that and just let those people wear themselves out and win the other brackets.
Yeah.
They'll just come in on the line again and be like, oh, cool. You guys can start this thing. I'm going to wait for about 10, 20 minutes while you're tired and come back in, right?
Yeah. Well, so I think though, because we've talked a lot about like different topics here, but so I think the biggest thing if you're an hour and 40 minutes into this thing and you're trying to figure out what the main takeaway is, it's that first off, you need to communicate very clearly what the rules of your tournament are going to be as early as you possibly can and stick to that
Absolutely.
as much as it's possible to do so.
And do research and talk to other people as you're coming up with this before you make your posts, before anything else.
Talk to your top fighters, like legitimately.
Yes.
I mean, this is the thing, right? This is the second takeaway is that like there's no right or wrong way to run a tournament. There are certainly best practices. I mean, it depends largely on, from what I've understood here, the amount of time you have and how many fighters you have.
Yep.
Yes.
The goal should always be the same: be the best showcase of talent, give people the most opportunities to showcase that talent, and then with that goal in mind, figure out what tournament structure works best for your number of players in your particular time frame.
Also, the number of volunteers you have in some ways.
Yes,
Yeah, the
absolutely.
resource. And I'm the villain.
And Jay is the villain.
Yes.
Bad guy
Clearly.
Jay.
He has a goatee.
Yeah.
I also have a goatee.
No.
No.
Yeah, there's just more beard
You have-
attached to
It's
it.
not even a bird's nest. It's like a flamingo's nest. It's so big.
Flamingos nest above sulfurous water. This is not
Nerd.
I also have a goatee. There's just more beard attached to it. Like, I got a haircut. Dude, you got chemotherapy. Haircut
Wow,
out, like,
that got dark.
blame
He's
Robin
right.
Williams. Who I stole that joke from.
Speaking of, if you have not already done so, our fundraiser for St. Jude Children's Hospital is still running.
Boy, that almost
Great.
feels bad to
Great
jump into that
tie-in.
one. Yeah.
God damn.
Yeah, that was wonderful. And after that, smash the like button.
See,
That's the
sometimes
worst segue on our entire
sometimes Jay does my
Is it
job.
the worst?
whole year about
I
this
took your
now.
title from you.
Oh, God.
Yeah, so joking aside, if you have not already done so and have the ability to do so, we would really appreciate it if you would donate to St. Jude's Children's Hospital. It's a good cause. Money goes directly to the families so that they do not have to pay for treatment, food, sheltering while their children are having stuff. You can donate through the link that will be at the bottom of this page. We will have it open through the end of November. Once again, if you haven't seen the earlier episodes, we have actually already met our goal. We set our goal at 500, and we were able to meet that. Thank you so much to everyone that has donated. But we would love to see if we could double it. If we could get up to 1,000 was way beyond our wildest dreams.
Yep.
So if we could reach a point where we doubled our original goal, that would be amazing. Again, I know that this is getting close to the holiday seasons for a lot of people. Give what you can when you can.
Jay,
guys
you got
have
anything to
else?
plug?
Yeah.
You doing anything?
Yes, actually. So completely unconfirmed because the data got lost. But to my best understanding for that Friday Night Iron Man, the winner of said Iron Man, Kazan. Congratulations, Kazan.
Hey, congrats.
Congrats, man.
Can't confirm because they lost the data, but hey,
We
I
are
know you
pretty
did it.
sure it's you.
yep. So congratulations.
One other thing, actually, since we're talking about tournaments, a recent guest on the show, Fikes. Is it Lady Fikes or just Fikes?
I don't know if she has her belt or not.
Fikes was, or I guess was found. Sounds very posthumous. But
Right.
Fikes is a God. What's the Darkon player.
Yes.
From the Washington, D.C. area. They were on our show a couple episodes ago now. They also cross-gamed to Amthgard, and they won their 8th Order of the Warrior.
They did.
Ooh.
Yep.
Huge congrats to that. That's
Awesome.
That's amazing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anything else?
Hit the subscribe.
I'm good here.
All right, I'm going to find an implement to push
Nope,
the button
just
with.
push the button
What do I got?
with your finger.
Feels like a broom.
Nope,
Oh yeah,
Oh,
definitely
this
use
where
the
we broke?
brushes.
I
I'm not
don't.
going to use
He-
brushes.
come on, you can hit it with the brushes.
Oh dear Lord.
Distance on
Not
this.
everyone.
Awkward night, guys. Hey, first try. I didn't roll the outro. I'm just
Nope,
gonna tack
it didn't go.
It's
You
stuck
fu-
here.
It's spinning.
No,
Is
it's
it?
fine. We got it here.
Oh, you must have kept it on off.
Oh, I can hit the outro. Hold on, wait.
Professional.
I hate this.
Disgustingly professional. Hey everyone, thanks for listening. If
Yeah.
you liked what you heard, be sure to subscribe to our podcast on YouTube or Spotify to get notified about new episodes. And make sure to follow us on Facebook for
Well,
announcements
what'd you
and
think?
more.
How'd that go for you? Okay. Dude, I
Yeah, I
felt
hit
it was
stop.